Hey everybody, Austin Hill Shaw here, founder of Creativity Matters and author of The Shoreline of Wonder on Being Creative. Today we're going to start a new series. We're going to start talking about some things that have been on my mind for a long time. And this series is called Creativity and Bay Area Innovation. Creativity and Bay Area Innovation. And this is going to be an opportunity by which we get to explore some of the topics of creativity and how they're related to innovation, but we can look at how they're unfolding in one of my favorite places in the entire earth, and a place where I've chosen to live, which is the San Francisco Bay Area, which is really kind of remarkable. There's a statistic I found a couple years ago that said, 32% of all venture capital in the United States that's invested, 32% of that is invested here in the Bay Area. And we know that there's a lot of different types of companies, especially tech companies right now, such as Apple, Facebook, YouTube, that are all located here in the Bay Area. And the Bay Area, there's a whole reason for that. And we'll explore that at depth in some point in time. And a lot of this material actually, some of it is very new, and some of it goes back to 2012. When I was finishing up the Shoreline of Wonder, I started to write on the internet, and that year actually before August, the first, what was that 8 months of the year, I wrote 197 blogs, that on a variety of topics, but all related to creativity and innovation. And it's been a lot of fun to go back into there, especially because recently I've been doing a big deep dive into innovation, problem solving, and management. So these topics to me are really of interest, and I think they're going to be of interest to you, especially framed in the stories that kind of go behind those. And in order to kick this whole thing off, I want to start by just getting into, for lack of a better word, the energy of the Bay Area, the energy of the Bay Area. And I know when we start to use things like energy, it might start to sound kind of woo-woo, but I assure you there's nothing further from the truth on that. I mean, I'm sure that there's sort of new agey ways of looking at that energy that are very woo-woo, but there's also very sophisticated ways of looking at energy in order so that we can understand better why certain places and certain people's creativity seems to proliferate and grow and add to the value and richness of their lives and the lives of the people around them, and why others don't. And again, I believe that everybody is born a creator. All of us are endowed with the ability to create, but not all of us put it to use. And I'm hoping that in going through this series that one, we see ourselves, all of us, see our innate creative abilities, and two, that we learn to put them to use in all aspects of our lives. I mean, creativity, again, is not a gift of certain individuals and not others. It's a defining trait of being human. So the other motivation behind this, again, is to continue this quest for all you in our growing community to help see ourselves as creators and thereby feel more connected, feel like we're making more of a difference, and that we have more meaning in our lives, and that we're inspiring others around us. I mean, it's a really powerful thing to be a creator, to live the life of a creator. So in order to understand this sort of energy behind the Bay Area, this first talk is about what I call the Feng Shui factor. The Feng Shui factor. And Feng Shui is essentially a term that comes out of China that means wind and water. And I first learned about Feng Shui when I was an undergraduate at the University of California, Berkeley, in a geography class. It was in 1988. And here was this term introduced by a means by which the Chinese had come up with this system of understanding human relationships and human-built structures and things of that, and their relationship to nature. And again, Feng Shui translates as wind and water, okay? Wind and water. And the way I like to think of it is that Feng Shui is the study of the way that unseen forces affect our lives, okay? In the same way that the wind that you can't see has an effect on the water that it moves over. I mean, I know this very well as a surfer. All the waves that I'm surfing are basically coming from wind that's either close to the shore or it's coming from wind thousands of miles away, especially those big storms that are just pushing energy into the water and create what are called ground swells. But today we're going to look at what is the particular quality of Feng Shui within the Bay Area. When I wrote on this a while back, I described the Bay Area as being, and living in the Bay Area as being in this curious feeling of being in the Bay Area is the felt sense of being right smack in the middle of the unending courtship between a beautiful, emotive, life-giving woman and a powerful, steadfast, purposeful man. Again, the curious feeling of being in the Bay Area is the felt sense of being right smack in the middle of an unending courtship between a beautiful, emotive, life-giving woman and a powerful, steadfast, purposeful man. And what I'm trying to say there is that the reason that the Bay Area is such an amazing place because it has this aspect of the feminine energy, which is known as Yin Energy in Taoism and also in Feng Shui, and Yang Energy, which is kind of the masculine energy. And really, when we look at the Bay Area, the Yin Energy is represented by the Pacific Ocean. You know, I was just taking my daughter to school the other day, and she pointed out the car window. It's raining, raining buckets these days. But she was pointing out, she's like, "Look at those seagulls on the roof up there." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool. There's seagulls." You know, and then I was just cued into again that, you know, the largest ocean in the world is just a handful of miles to the west from here in Berkeley, you know, we're inside of the Bay. And it helped me to resonate with like, wow, the largest ocean, the largest body of water in the entire world is just to the west. And that is the Yin Energy. Yin Energy is associated with, you know, the cold, shape-shifting, dark, amorphous aspect of the world that gives rise to creative insight, that gives rise to life. I mean, as we know, or as a scientist, as far as they can determine, life began in the oceans, and there's a reason for it, because there's so much movement and interplay. They even speculate that it happened in the tide pools, where you have interactions between the shoreline and the ocean, you know, right on that edge condition there. So that's the Yin Energy, and that's over to the west. And the Yang Energy, the masculine energy, is over to the east in a place called the Central Valley, which is a place that is hot, dry, highly cultivated. It's a place which supposedly produces about a quarter of this country's produce, a quarter of it. And it's also really interesting because it's one of the flattest places in the United States. It's basically a lot of the material that was basically brought down and washed down from the Sierra Nevada mountains into that valley by the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers there. So what you have here in the Bay Area is, again, you have this air mass to the west, which is the Yin Energy that comes through the Golden Gate, and you have this air mass to the east, which comes down through the Carquinez Straits, down basically following the rivers, and they swirl together. And this creates an interesting energetic pattern. It's not a good or a bad energetic pattern, but it's just playing with these prime energies that Feng Shui and Taoism are based on. The prime yin, okay, the prime feminine, and the prime masculine. And so those two things are kind of working themselves out. And to make this hit home a little bit, I mean, I know a lot of you don't live in the Bay Area, but just to give you a sense of that, you know, there's other binary systems out there like that are based on, you know, one thing and then another. And one of them being, of course, the computer systems, right? Those are based on binary systems of ones or zeros, right? Either something is on or it is off. And out of that, which seems like an incredibly simple system, they're able to build up coding that allows us to, you know, use this technology I'm using right now. I'm filming this all right on an iPhone. And that we could get little bits of electricity moved through semiconductors in certain ways in order so that information can be transmitted. But another one that's really profound to me is that operation between two polarities is DNA. Of course, you know, the DNA, the shape of the DNA is this double helix. And I like to think of one sort of as ascending and one descending on some sort of ways. But that's how life, as in all life that we know it, has that same coding system in every single cell of its body. You know, there's a code for me in every single cell of my body, which to me is like mind-blowing, that you could reproduce some version of me just by going into one cell of my body and pulling out that information. I don't know if that's biologically correct, but it's an amazing idea. So as we think about this and as we start to make this personal, you know, no matter where you live, what do you see as a yin space? You know, a space that is kind of wild, somewhat uninhabitable on some levels, a place where, you know, the busyness of the world starts to fall away and you can start to feel the expansiveness of your mind, okay? Or I should say the expansiveness of yourself with a capital S, all right? What's some place like that in your environment that you can go to, okay? And on the other hand, what is an example of yang energy? What's an example of yang energy? Like, what's a place where you can go where you feel the hustle and bustle of humanity, where you notice the movement of culture and different religious groups and different races all commingling, like a market space or the mall, or even a nightclub or something where people are dancing and moving around, like sort of more yang energy, right? Just think of those two like different worlds, and what are ways in which you can inhabit both of those in order so that you can bring forth more creativity and innovation in your life. Remember, from my definition, creativity is connecting with the world and affecting it in a meaningful way. And so the connecting portion of creativity is all about opening up to possibility. Those are what give forth our creative insights. And on the other hand, is our ability to manifest those insights. You know, the ability to bring in that yang energy, that masculine energy, in order to bring those insights to fruition. You know, one of the places that I like to work, and I know a lot of people are like this, I like to go work in cafes because I can hear the interactions of other people around me, but I don't feel totally alone. So it's almost like I'm riding on the energy of other people around me while I'm working to complete my own creative projects. So again, contemplate, again, what's the yin energy? What are the prime yin energies, either in your life or out in the environments that you have it? And what are the yang energies? What are those places that you go to that, you know, cause you to want to be more motivated and bring things into the world and work hard? What are those things? Please leave those in the comment sections below this video. And that would be helpful to me and to all of our community. You know, it's amazing just, you know, as I move forward with this, all the responses. This is sort of a side note, but people come up to me these days and say, wow, I've been watching your videos, and I was like, wow, I had no idea. I had no, you know, like, and I was really moved by this particular thing. It just ran into somebody a couple nights ago who'd been moving through a really hard time and really enjoyed some of the things that they had recently. So the more you share, the more we get to know what's going on for you. And again, interdependence and community are a huge portion of creativity, as we're going to talk about as well. The other thing that I encourage you to do is not only to comment, but to read the text below this video. If you're not at www.austinhillshaw.com, that's where you'll find the full text for this. Again, most of this was written in 2012, but I'm trying to augment it and change it all the time to keep it current, relevant, and in line with the research that I'm doing on creativity and innovation right now. Okay? So thank you so much for joining me. This is Austin Hill Shaw, founder of Creativity Matters and author of The Shoreline of Wonder, reminding you to connect deeply, to make a difference, and to inspire creativity in others. Thank you so much for joining me.